In the fertile crescent of the ancient world, where the first rivers carved life into the soil, the Sumerians whispered of beings who descended from the heavens. They called them Anunnaki, lords of secrets and arbiters of human fate. Temples rose, massive and silent, their ziggurats piercing the horizon like the spines of gods. Kings claimed authority not through blood, but through the touch of something beyond comprehension. Yet, in the shadow of these colossal structures, entire chambers remained sealed, their contents unknown, and inscriptions spoke of a hidden code in the stars, predicting the rise and fall of empires long before their time. Every brick seemed to hum with a question: who truly ruled here, and what price was paid for knowing too much? Beneath the sun's relentless gaze, the air carried a faint chill, a warning that some knowledge once glimpsed could never be forgotten, nor fully understood. Beyond the temples, where the city's hum softened into the wind, tales of forbidden knowledge persisted. Scrolls and tablets hinted at rituals that opened doorways, not just of spirit, but of time itself. The Sumerians, wise yet wary, knew that power borrowed from the heavens came at a cost. Entire generations vanished without record, swallowed by the sands, or perhaps by the secrets they sought to uncover. As the sun dipped, painting the city in molten gold, the faintest of whispers could be heard. The gods still watched, their eyes hidden in the constellations, measuring the worthiness of mortal ambition. Every shadow, every flicker of candlelight seemed to pulse with expectation, reminding the living that some mysteries were never meant to be solved. In the central square, a solitary statue of a god with outstretched arms watched over the market, its gaze seeming to follow every passerby. Merchants paused, children hid behind baskets, and elders whispered of the night when the statue's eyes gleamed unnaturally, as if it were alive. Legend spoke of an ancient pact. Those who dared to decipher the celestial inscriptions risked their soul in return for forbidden knowledge. Every step through the square was measured, cautious, as though the air itself remembered the sins of generations past. Shadows lengthened, not cast by light, but by memory, and the city seemed poised on the edge of a secret it might never release. Beneath the city, in hidden catacombs forgotten by most, walls bore cryptic messages in clay and stone. Each symbol pulsed faintly in the flicker of torchlight, as if alive with a story unwilling to be fully told. Explorers who dared enter stones not made by human hands, of drafts carrying whispers from eras long extinguished. Some claimed that the very ground beneath their feet remembered the footsteps of gods, and trembled when they were challenged. It was here in the quiet, in the thick, ancient dust, that the first hints of humankind's fascination with the divine and the dangerous were most tangible. As night fully settled, the city lay cloaked under a canopy of stars. The ziggurats, silent sentinels, kept their ancient vigil, indifferent to the lives unfolding below. Somewhere, a tablet shifted imperceptibly in its chamber, as if to remind the living that knowledge once discovered could never be forgotten. And the Anunnaki, whether myth or memory, watched from a distance, waiting for the moment humanity might again attempt to touch what should remain untouchable. In the deep hush, the wind whispered through the terraces, carrying the unspoken promise that some mysteries would endure long after the last candle flickered and the last voice fell silent. Beneath the unrelenting sun of Egypt, the desert hid more than sand and stone. It hid a labyrinth that time itself seemed unwilling to reveal. Legends spoke of passages so vast they could swallow a city, corridors lined with inscriptions warning intruders to turn back or vanish like smoke in the heat. Scholars argued it was mere myth, yet travelers whispered of glimpses of shadowy figures moving through endless halls. Torches flickered against walls, covered in hieroglyphs, the air thick with the scent of dust and ancient oils. In the heartbeat of silence, one could almost hear the faint echoes of footsteps that were never there, and the faint hum of a secret power that had guided kings, priests, and perhaps even gods long before the pyramids rose above the sands. High above the Nile, a palace glimmered with gold and secrets, where a pharaoh once challenged the will of the gods. His reign, brief yet notorious, left behind whispers of forbidden knowledge, and a court that vanished almost overnight. Temples echoed with hymns that no longer matched the stars, and priests documented celestial alignments in obsidian and papyrus. The river carried the weight of these mysteries, reflecting the gold and crimson of the sunset, as if it too remembered what had been lost. And in the quiet corners of the palace, shadows danced in patterns only the initiated could understand, hinting at a rebellion against the divine order itself. Beneath the grandeur, crypts hid more than bodies. They held riddles carved in stone. One chamber, untouched for centuries, contained a statue whose eyes seemed alive, tracking the movements of intruders. The air smelled faintly of myrrh and decay. Explorers spoke of strange drafts carrying whispers in forgotten languages, and of symbols that shifted when unobserved. Every stone, polished by centuries of ritual, hinted at knowledge deliberately obscured. As the moonlight poured through small openings, it illuminated paths no human map could chart, and the labyrinth seemed to breathe, as if the very earth remembered the secrets buried deep within. Far from the grand palaces, along the Nile's quiet bends, whispers of vanished cities persisted. Fishermen spoke of ruins that appeared only when the river's water fell, temples submerged beneath centuries of silence. Some claimed the temple's ceilings bore inscriptions predicting floods, plagues, and the rise of distant kingdoms. These prophecies seemed carved by a hand that understood both man and divine alike. Travelers dared not linger too long, for the river carried not only water, but the weight of memory. And those who probed its secrets sometimes returned with their minds touched by visions of a past they were never meant to see. As night fell, the desert and river merged into one vast expanse of shadows, and the pyramids themselves seemed to whisper. Their stones, hewn with precision, hid knowledge that outlived the mortals who built them. Somewhere deep inside, a passage led to a chamber that recorded the movements of stars, the shifting of kingdoms, and perhaps even the fate of humanity. Those who dared enter these secretive spaces never returned unchanged. Some spoke of hearing voices older than time itself. Beneath the same stars that had guided travelers and kings alike, Egypt's mysteries endured, silent, immutable, waiting for the next soul bold enough to step into their eternal watch. In the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, where sunlight barely pierced the thick canopy, colossal stone heads loomed as silent sentinels of an enigmatic civilization. The Olmecs carved these monoliths from basalt transported miles from distant quarries, yet no wheels or beasts of burden have been found. Each face bore features unfamiliar, almost otherworldly, and their gaze seemed to follow visitors who dared approach. Tribes whispered that these heads were not mere monuments, but vessels for ancient knowledge, infused with the spirits of sky beings who once walked among men. Travelers often felt the air thicken as they neared, as if the stone itself held memories of voices no human tongue could replicate. These silent titans preserved a truth older than the forest itself, waiting for those perceptive enough to understand their message. Villages thrived near the heads, small communities aware of the power that hovered above. Elders told stories of travelers who vanished into the jungle, drawn by whispers from the stone. Rituals were performed to honor the unseen patrons of their craft, invoking protection for both the people and the monuments. Some children swore, the heads spoke in dreams, revealing visions of the stars, distant lands, and events yet to come. The forest, alive with chirps and rustling leaves, seemed to echo these whispers, as though the earth itself had preserved the language of the gods, waiting for humanity to listen closely enough to hear. The jungle floor concealed remnants of stone pathways leading to hidden altars, where rituals once summoned rain, fertility, and celestial favor. Offerings of jade, obsidian, and cacao were placed with reverence, each gesture precise, as though the very balance of the cosmos depended on their correctness. The air felt heavy with expectation. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig might be a message from beings long gone. Scholars and explorers alike marveled at the precision and artistry of these works, noting that the Olmecs possessed knowledge of geometry and astronomy that rivaled civilizations centuries later. Here, in the green heart of the continent, humanity glimpsed the profound intersection of the earthly and the divine. Some heads bore inscriptions that no modern scholar could decode, hints of a language older than memory, carved into the weathered stone with painstaking care. Expeditions uncovered partial maps etched into cliff faces, suggesting travel and trade networks spanning regions far beyond the known Olmec domain. Yet for every discovery, the forest seemed to reclaim evidence, erasing pathways and swallowing relics, as if to remind mortals that not all knowledge was meant to endure. The air carried a quiet warning. Curiosity could illuminate, but it could also consume, and the past remained both a teacher and a silent, eternal guardian. As night fell, the jungle grew dense with unseen life and whispered secrets. The colossal heads, dimly lit by flickering torches from nearby village fires, appeared almost animate, their stony eyes reflecting flickers of light as if aware of their observers. Travelers who lingered reported dreams of vast cities and sky beings, of knowledge glimpsed but never grasped. In the heart of this verdant wilderness, the Olmecs had left a silent challenge to decipher the unspoken messages of stone and to confront the possibility that humanity had once brushed against the divine, only to forget. And the jungle waited, patient and eternal, for those willing to listen. Carved from the heart of a single mountain, the Kailasa temple rose like a frozen wave, an astonishing testament to human vision, or something beyond it. Every pillar, every sculpted figure, pulsed with a perfection that defied explanation. Legends told of craftsmen who worked not for kings, but for gods, and of tools that seemed to move as if alive. The surrounding cliffs echoed with the faint sound of chisels striking stone, though no hand could be seen. Pilgrims who arrived felt an overwhelming sense of awe, as though they were in the presence of something eternal, something that had watched empires rise and fall while remaining untouched, a monument to both devotion and impossible skill. Beneath the waves, off the western coast, the lost city of Dwarka slumbered, swallowed by the Arabian Sea. Fishermen spoke of submerged streets and temples glimpsed through shifting tides, and of golden artifacts that reflected sunlight even in the depths. Scholars debated whether this city had belonged to mortals or to beings favored by gods. Maps, stories, and ancient texts all hinted at a civilization whose knowledge of architecture and navigation rivaled any yet discovered. The sea seemed to guard its secret jealously, allowing only fragments to rise, as if testing humanity's patience and humility. Legends spoke of kings who walked among mortals, their palaces adorned with gemstones and sacred inscriptions, vanishing suddenly beneath the tide. Temples emerged briefly during low water, revealing elaborate carvings depicting battles, celestial alignments, and rituals that defied conventional understanding. Each stone seemed to hum with memory, whispering the rise and fall of dynasties, the devotion of priests, and the imperishable essence of a culture lost to time. Those who observed closely often reported visions of processions and festivals, as if the city remembered itself even while submerged, a fleeting echo of a brilliance nearly erased by the sea. At Kailasa, intricate carvings depicted gods in conversation with humans, celestial beings guiding mortals toward enlightenment. Some scholars suggested these depictions were more than allegory. They were records of events that blended myth and reality. Pilgrims circled the temple's vast courtyards, tracing the steps of those long gone, feeling a subtle vibration beneath their feet. as if the mountain itself remembered each strike of the chisel and each whispered prayer. The temple was a message in stone, a challenge and a blessing. To decipher the divine, one must recognize the limits of mortal understanding and embrace the awe of the unknown. As night fell, the mountain seemed to exhale centuries of secrets. Shadows stretched across the temple's terraces, creating fleeting illusions of figures long departed. The sea nearby whispered against the shore, carrying faint echoes of Dwarka's submerged streets. In these twin realms, one of stone, one of water, India's ancient mysteries persisted, a reminder that human ingenuity could approach the divine, but true comprehension was fleeting. Those who sought answers felt simultaneously humbled and exhilarated, standing between worlds, where the impossible had been made real, yet remained untouchable, suspended in eternity. Far to the north, where glaciers scrape the sky and ice sheets stretch beyond the horizon, whispers of forgotten kingdoms persist. Tartaria, a name almost erased from memory, was said to possess knowledge and technology far beyond the modern imagination. Maps, like the Piri-Reis chart, suggested coastlines and lands lost to time, drawn with a precision that confounded contemporary explorers. Scholars debated whether these lands were ever real or merely legends, yet some artifacts buried beneath snow and permafrost hinted at civilizations capable of feats long forgotten. In the biting cold, one could almost hear echoes of vanished cities, the wind carrying stories frozen in both stone and ice, waiting for the next soul daring enough to uncover them. Vast ruins emerged from the melting ice, revealing streets aligned with geometric precision, towers hewn from massive stone, and artifacts that hinted at trade networks spanning continents. No inscriptions clearly identified the builders, and no record survived of their kings or culture. Every structure suggested intelligence far beyond the reach of the era that history acknowledges. Travelers felt the weight of time pressing against them, as if the ice itself remembered the ambitions and tragedies of those long gone. Each step on the frozen ground felt like walking through a memory, half remembered. A civilization erased, but refusing to vanish completely. Maps like the Piri-Reis chart depicted lands with astonishing accuracy, coastlines, rivers, and mountains unseen by most of the world for centuries. How such knowledge existed long before modern exploration remains a puzzle. Some believed Tartaria had mastered navigation and astronomy to a degree humanity would not achieve again for millennia. Ice-covered ruins hinted at advanced metallurgy, aqueducts, and urban planning, all carefully concealed beneath centuries of frost. Explorers who studied the charts reported dreams of cities that might have existed, visions of streets and palaces glimmering under a pale northern sun, as though the frozen past reached across time to whisper its secrets. Some explorers found artifacts so refined they could not be explained by contemporary technology. Bronze tools, intricate carvings, and massive stone blocks hinted at an advanced understanding of engineering lost to time. The frozen land seemed to guard their legacy jealously. Entire cities lay buried, yet when snow melted, fleeting glimpses teased the mind. Each discovery carried both wonder and unease, reminding humanity that history might be far older and stranger than recorded. The very ice seemed to pulse with memory, whispering warnings that some knowledge, once unearthed, could shift understanding of the world irreversibly. As night fell over the frozen expanse, the aurora borealis danced across the sky, illuminating remnants of cities and roads carved into stone. The wind carried whispers of empires that defied chronology, civilizations erased from written history, but preserved in ice and legend. Travelers shivered, not just from cold, but from the weight of the unanswered questions pressing upon them. Who built these kingdoms? How did they vanish so completely? And would humanity ever truly comprehend the knowledge they left behind? Beneath the stars and shifting colors of the northern sky, the vanished kingdoms of ice waited patiently, eternal and unknowable. daring the curious to come closer. On the rolling hills of southeastern Anatolia, a site older than memory emerged from the earth. Göbekli Tepe, towering stone pillars, carved with enigmatic symbols and strange creatures, formed circles whose purpose eluded every modern scholar. Some pillars bore reliefs of animals not seen in the region today. Others hinted at celestial alignments lost to time. The first temple, intentionally buried at its zenith, carried a message encrypted in stone. Civilization itself could be both created and hidden. Archaeologists walking among the ruins felt the weight of millennia pressing down, as if every strike of the sculptor's chisel and every whispered prayer were waiting to be understood by those daring enough to listen. The carvings told stories that no written history preserved. Beasts intertwined with humans, abstract patterns reflecting unknown cosmologies, and arrangements suggesting ceremonies both sacred and secret. Explorers sensed an intelligence that predated kings and empires, one that understood both stone and ritual. The air was thick with history, and each echoing footstep seemed to awaken whispers trapped in the rock. Visitors could almost imagine the hands that had lifted these monoliths, hands guided by belief, necessity, or perhaps knowledge too dangerous to reveal. Even buried, the temple pulsed with an unspoken narrative. Its deliberate concealment suggested an understanding of power, of knowledge too potent to be left exposed. Scholars debated whether the site was a sanctuary, a library, or a warning. Local legends spoke of gods who once walked among men, of rites performed to bind the heavens to the earth. Each symbol carved in stone carried meaning, layered over centuries, like echoes of a song whose melody had almost been forgotten. Explorers sensed that to uncover the temple was to glimpse the earliest human fascination with both mortality and eternity. The site's layout hinted at astronomy far beyond the understanding of contemporary people. Certain pillars aligned with the solstice, others with constellations, suggesting that the builders measured the sky as meticulously as the earth. Each circle of stone, carefully positioned, seemed to encode knowledge of seasons, cycles, and perhaps the fate of humanity itself. Those who studied the site reported moments of vertigo, as though reality itself bent under the weight of ancient understanding. Göbekli Tepe was a whisper from a time before writing, a voice from stone that refused to be ignored. As night fell over the Anatolian plateau, the buried temple seemed to exhale centuries of secrets. Stars emerged above the stone circles, echoing alignments encoded in the pillars. The wind carried a faint echo of chants, perhaps imagined, perhaps memory. Those who lingered felt a connection to the dawn of civilization itself, a reminder that human ingenuity and faith could leave monuments beyond time's erasure. Göbekli Tepe stood as both revelation and enigma, a voice from stone, asking questions that no mortal answer could fully satisfy, challenging humanity to remember, to wonder, and to respect the power of what was intentionally hidden. Long before the first recorded history, a great flood swept across continents, reshaping coastlines and erasing civilizations. The survivors carried memory in fragments, stories told around fires, symbols etched in clay, and songs that echoed the deluge. Some spoke of cities swallowed by water, towers and temples vanishing beneath relentless waves. Scholars have long debated whether these myths were warnings or recollections of a real event, yet traces of advanced knowledge, preserved in tablets and carvings, hint at civilizations lost before even the oldest empires arose. Standing at the edge of a cliff overlooking the ocean, one could almost hear the waters rise and fall, carrying whispers of those who lived, loved, and perished, their knowledge encoded in every surviving relic. Beneath the waves, remnants of cities glimmered faintly, coral and sand hiding streets, temples, and statues that once stood proud above the tides. Fishermen spoke of nets snagged on strange stones, bronze gates and pillars rising just below the surface. The water itself seemed alive with memory, preserving fragments of a world forgotten yet still present in every wave. Explorers who dived into these submerged ruins felt the weight of time pressing down, a tactile reminder that knowledge could survive catastrophe, if only humanity remembered how to listen to the traces left behind. Ancient maps and myths from cultures across the world hinted at a shared memory of this cataclysm. Rivers, mountains, and islands recorded in stories aligned across continents, suggesting that humanity had once been more interconnected than modern history admits. Some relics seemed impossibly advanced, as if survivors had carried knowledge from an older civilization to seed future societies. Every artifact, every symbol, whispered a story of resilience, adaptation, and the persistence of memory across generations, challenging scholars to reconcile myth with evidence, legend with fact, and imagination with the fact. Undeniable echoes of once was. On remote plains and hidden valleys, artifacts bore striking similarities across civilizations separated by oceans and time. Temples, statues, and stone carvings suggested a lost language of symbols and a shared understanding of the cosmos. Archaeologists and anthropologists studied these relics in awe, realizing that human memory, collective and enduring, could bridge millennia. The flood may have destroyed cities, but it could not destroy knowledge entirely. Each discovery was a fragment of a grand narrative, a whisper from a world before history, reminding humanity that the past is never truly gone, only waiting to be heard again. As the sun set over ancient lands, the surviving remnants of these civilizations shimmered in twilight, each relic a message in stone, bronze, or clay. The wind carried the faintest echoes of voices long gone, the memory of floods, migrations, and the rise and fall of empires. Humanity, standing at the edge of this history, is reminded that knowledge persists beyond catastrophe, that memory endures when written, spoken, or etched in enduring stone. In the quiet beneath the stars that have witnessed countless ages, one can hear the world itself whispering, "Remember, explore, and honor what has come before, for it is the memory that remains, the eternal guide across time."